I can do if you leave me here to cry. There is nothing I can do if you leave me here to cry. You know my love will follow you as the years go passing by. Gave you all I had to give. That's one thing you can't deny. Gave you all I had to give. That's one thing you can't deny. You know my love will follow you as the years go passing by. You know my love will follow you as the years go passing by. That sound too loud?
Sounds okay. So, we're going to set up chairs out here. Sitting. You going to stay up here?
Yeah. You're going to try. Okay.
You guys want to play another one, or?
Well, maybe we should give way to the service. Oh, okay. Wonderful.
Okay, we should bring that. Go ahead.
the open. Down, down, down by a redwood tree. Yes, last night I slept in the open. Just to let my soul go free. I don't wanna go back into the city. I don't wanna go back into the city. Just a long taxi ride, going nowhere. Last night I slept in the open. Down, down, down by a redwood tree. Yes, last night I slept in the open. Just to let my soul go free, 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 free. Now I don't wanna go back into the city. I don't wanna go back into the city. Just a long taxi ride. Thank you, Thomas. My name's Kevin Hamm. It's my brother Randy Hamm. We're Jesse's uncles, and my lovely wife Erin. Just want to make a little intro for y'all.
Thank you so much. Good evening. Hello. Welcome. Welcome to this beautiful building on a night that we have set aside to honor and celebrate the life of Jesse Hamm. Jesse was many things to the people in this room. He was a friend, a colleague, a brother, a cousin, a nephew, a friend, a husband. And your presence here, whether you're physically in this space or whether you are participating via live stream, means so much. I want to thank you on behalf of Jesse's wife, Anna, and his sister, Ann, and the rest of his family for being here tonight. It's really good to be together. Doesn't it feel good to be in a space, in a room with people together? love, sorrow, shock, confusion, gratitude. And all of this is welcome in this space tonight. We're going to cry together. And knowing Jesse, we are also going to laugh together. Over the last few weeks, as I've talked with Anna and some other family members and friends of Jesse's, it's been moving to hear the words that people use to describe him. He had so many facets. He was calming, gentle, generous, humble, companionable, a good listener, ready with a smile, quirky, passionate, exceptionally talented, driven to excellence in his work, and of course, he had a wicked sense of humor. But this is just the beginning of what we know about Jesse. Tonight, we'll have the privilege from hearing from a number of people who can help paint a fuller picture of Jesse's character and his legacy. As we begin tonight, I invite you to join me in a moment of prayer. God who sees, we thank you for Jesse's life. We are hurting because he isn't here with us. And in the midst of this pain, we also feel gratitude. We're thankful for the gift of friendship and love we experienced through Jesse, and for the ways that he uniquely showed us glimpses of the goodness and beauty in the world just by being exactly who he was. Tonight we gather in this space to remember all the good times we've spent with Jesse and to recount all the blessings we've received through his life. We thank you, God, for the impact Jesse made on the life of every person here. We are different people because we knew him. Amen.
A Blessing by Jan Richardson. What fire comes to sing in you? This blessing had big ideas about what it wanted to say, what it wanted you to know and to see. This blessing wanted to open your eyes to the joy that lives in such strange company with sorrow. Wanted to make sure to tell you, lest you forget, that no matter how long it seems absent, no matter how quiet it becomes, no matter, joy has never been far from you. Holding a space of celebration, watching for you, humming as it keeps vigil. But now comes it time to speak it, comes time to lay these words on your brow, your beating heart. All this blessing can think to say is, look, your life, a candle, this day a match, strike it and see what blazes, what fire comes to sing in you.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here. I'm Jesse's aunt. I married mean old Uncle Kevin, and so got to play that role. I just want to take a second also and gather my thoughts. Okay. Do a little prayer here. Ho, Nyakatasan. I call to my guides, my guardians, my teachers, my helpers, my masters, my totems, my angels, my ancestors, those who have gone before and those yet to come. I call to the four directions, above, below, and within. I call to all that is, no matter what name you give it, to join us in the circle, say a prayer to help send Jesse on. I'd like to thank Sarah and Rosanne for their words. I'd also like to take a moment and ask that we close our eyes and think of Jesse and what he meant to each of us in our own way and how he touched our lives and our hearts. Now, if you can surround him with love and light and send him to his highest good. Thank you. Jesse was like a son to us. His passing has been really hard to take, as I'm sure all of you are feeling the loss and missing him too. Jesse left us suddenly, and we're not able to say goodbye, which can make it difficult to work through. But as you know in your heart, Jesse's in a better place. He learned whatever it was he came here and what he was sent here for, and he did it perfectly. We are so proud of the man that Jesse became, the extraordinary man. As a kid, he was well-mannered and polite, but of course that's what you are to your aunt and your uncle. His cousins or his sister Anne might be able to tell you a different story. He was always drawing. He always had a pad, pencil, or pen at hand, always handy, always looking for or piecing together his works of art. You could watch him. He was so gifted, even at that early age, and so determined. And you'd watch him looking out a window or just gazing off into space, and you knew that he was in his own world. And he'd just drift off and then start to draw. And he'd put it down on paper, that world, and then he'd bring it back when he could show you that drawing. Jesse had a strength, too, that helped him get through his battle with leukemia in his late teens, and then being there for his mom, Patty, when she was battling cancer. And then just recently, about a year and a half ago, we lost his father. Through the tough times, Jesse lived his dreams. He loved to draw, whether it was his mini comics, his Good as Lily, working on Hawkeye or Batman. He also found the love of his life and followed that to Sweden, where he married Anna and brought her back to share his life here. That was truly a blessing for Jesse. And he did it his way. He did it perfect. Find my place here, sorry. Okay. The last time we saw Jesse was at his dad's service in December of 2019. We were up in Dixon, California. We had been planning to go back since that day to Dixon to see his dad's final resting place, as it wasn't ready at the time of service. So on May 11th, we made that trek to take flowers to his grave. And while we were doing that, we were there for several hours, there was this bird that kept circling around and coming back around. And Kevin and I realized that it was an eagle. So I followed the Native American traditions, and I'd like to read to you what eagle means. Eagle means spirit and illumination. Eagle is the power of the Great Spirit, the connection to the divine. It is the ability to live in the realm of spirit and yet to be connected and balanced in the realm of earth. Eagle soars and is quick to observe its expansiveness within the overall pattern of life. It flies high in the clouds. Eagle is close to the heavens where God lives. In learning to fiercely attack your personal fear of the unknown, the wings of your soul will be supported by the ever-present breezes that are the breath of God. Feel your body, but more importantly, feel your spirit. If you are willing to walk the shadow of former realities, Eagle will bring illumination. It teaches you to look higher and to touch Grandfather's Son with your heart, to love the shadow as well as the light, to see the beauty in both, and you will take flight. We all know where Jesse came from. We all know where he is now, as we will be there one day ourselves. And I'd like to thank Jesse for sharing his beautiful giving spirit with us, for teaching us what is really important in life. Okay, one more thing. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul and guides me in the path of righteousness for his name's sake. Surely goodness and loving kindness shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever and ever. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and loving kindness shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever and ever. Before I close, I'd like to ask one more thing. Please be sure to tell the people that you hold dear that you love them. We never know when we take our last breath. We never know if you're going to see that person again. So please reach out. Love you, Jesse. I'm moved by all the stories that I've heard about Jesse today and on the internet, by the outpouring of love for Jesse. I want to thank you.
Hello, I'm Jesse's aunt, Gail Trujillo. Would you please stand with me if you are able as we say the Lord's Prayer together? Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever and ever. Amen.
Hello, my name is Donna, and I am one of Jesse's cousins on his mom's side. I'm the oldest cousin on his mom's side. If he was here, I'm sure he would point that out. And so the Jesse that I know is might be different than the Jesse that a lot of you know. There are 8 of us cousins on my mom's side of the family. And we would all get together, and my mom and her siblings, and so then all of us kids got together. And I was always the one put in charge. Donna, go watch the kids. And so I'd take them all outside. And my cousins are very much like their parents, like my aunts and uncles, right? So my mom is kind of like the little organizer, so that was me. And my Uncle Jimmy has 2 kids, and my Uncle Jimmy's very gregarious and very just like a lot, in a good way. And so his kids are like that. My Aunt Pat and my Aunt Kathy are both more intellectual, more quiet. They kind of stand back and just observe everything. And that's how Annie and Jesse and Jennifer and Michael are. They're all 4 of them just kind of quiet, and they just kind of hang back. So when I would be watching all the cousins, I would be chasing Jameson and Joanne around, and my sister, keeping everybody occupied. And then the 4 of them were, they were just always watching, just quiet. And it was always like that growing up. Jesse was always just very quiet. But then he would say things when he got older. He would say something so from left field, just and slay the entire room, right? And as we got older, when we became adults, his sense of humor was just so outrageous that I just remember thinking, my God, where was this kid? This isn't the kid that I raised. His sense of humor, as you all know, was just amazing. And, he, like it's been said before, he was always drawing, always drawing. When my parpar passed away, we all came up for the funeral, and, he was drawing my daughters, and my daughter Chloe says, he made me feel like a princess, because, she sat there very just, and I don't remember how old, she was probably 10, maybe, and she just sat there just, and Jesse's sketching her, and then my younger one was like, my turn, and she sat there, and I still have those. He just had that way. But whenever I think of Jesse, I think of just calm, right? For me. He was so calm and so quiet. And I want to paint that picture of calm and quiet because the story I want to share, broke the internet. So I got married, subsequently divorced, but I got married in 1999, and we had an amazing wedding reception. My family still talks about it to this day. My cousins, my aunts and uncles, and everybody. It was amazing. It was just awesome. So we're at the wedding reception. We're all dancing, whatever. And here comes Jesse onto the dance floor. Now, mind you, I mean, he's Jesse, right? He's like, I'm thinking he's just going to get out there and kind of, do like we do, right? He gets out there, and he starts dancing. I can't even express to you. It literally stopped the room. And I'm not, I mean, Annie's dying right now. I'm not even exaggerating. I have pictures. I couldn't find my wedding album, but I have pictures of all of everybody. We all just stopped and we were like, and it was the greatest thing ever. He was so in his own space, you know, and the music, and he's just, I mean, he's like doing things. He's just all over. It was like none of us were there, you know, and we all just stood and watched him for a good 5-7 minutes, maybe 10. I don't even know. There's pictures of all of us just standing around, just like jaws agape, watching him dance. And it was so amazing. And like, to me, up until that moment, it was always quiet Jesse. You know, oh, that's my cousin Jesse, he's so quiet. You know, and then after that, it was like, I think of Jesse and I think of that night. I think of that dance. And then he was done. You know, he finished, we all applauded, and we were like, what the heck was that? I mean, it was awesome, right? We were cheering him on, and he just kind of stood there, and he looked around, and he kind of went, and just walked right off the dance floor. And he could never replicate it. None of us could ever replicate it. A lot of us have gotten married since then, and it could never, you know, we always, Jesse, go dance, Jesse, you know, and it was never the same thing. You know, he was amazing. He was awesome. He could do that. He could be just this very introspective, serious person, go out on the dance floor, frickin' slay it, and then just go sit down and like sketch the room. You know, it was amazing. I wish I could have known him how some of you knew him. I've been reading a little bit of the things that have been shared in all the emails. I can't read it all yet. I can't quite bring myself to do that. But you know, the man that you guys describe is an amazing man, and I wish I could have known him that way, but I wish you guys could have known him the way I knew him too. You know, as just a little kid kind of playing in the dirt, digging in the anthill, you know. Thank you, Sarah, for organizing this. I'm glad we could do this. There's been too many things in the past year and a half that we haven't been able to do. And I'm glad we could do this. And I miss you, Jesse, and that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Donna. That was very good. My name is Ken. I'm Jesse's uncle on his mother's side, and I'm here to read a reading from Galatians, chapter 5, verse 22 and 23. I better put my glasses on or I won't get any farther. But what happens when we live God's way? He brings gifts into our lives, much the same way that fruit appears in an orchard. Things like affection for others, exuberance about life, serenity. We develop a willingness to stick with things, a sense of compassion in our hearts, and a conviction that a basic holiness permeates things and people. We find ourselves involved in local communities, not needing to force our way in life, able to marshal and direct our energies wisely. Thanks be to God.
I'm going to try to make this quick so I get through it. I'm Jesse's sister. his younger sister, and only. So I get to say that I thought he was cool before anyone else did. I got to grow up looking up to an older brother who had an intellect and a humor and a sense of adventure that there are things, I kind of describe my brother as a Ferdinand. He's that peaceful, quiet bull that doesn't want the chaos, and he doesn't want conflict, and he just wants to be himself and do his thing, which is create art and be a man of faith. And he did that. He was a man of his convictions, and he did it with a respect for other people who looked at things other ways. And he had a discernment where he could see through situations and people and ideas and art and see what was necessary and what was unnecessary. And he appreciated what was necessary. Everyone talks about his great sense of humor, and it is great. My parents have tapes of him laughing as a child because they just liked his laugh so much. I had a friend who was a gambler, a poker player, and I noticed that in conversations, if he wasn't going to win the conversation, he would fold out. So if he didn't have a winning hand in that conversation. And I noticed Jesse had a similar thing, not that he wanted to win a conversation, that was never his desire, but just he knew it was important, and the unimportant things he would just fold. You know, he wasn't frivolous. But the sense of adventure he did have, when we were kids, he'd found an old, like, 1950s Boy Scout book, and so he kind of became him and my scout leader, and he would teach me knots, and we would try to do the adventures and get the fake badges that, you know, the book talked about and things like that, and he would draw pictures, and I would color them in. There was a time when we were very young when whatever he was into, I thought was the coolest, you know, and he got into somehow, maybe he's 8, he thought Hulk Hogan was cool. And there was going to be a Hulkmania match that he got me hyped up about watching. And he even made us T-shirts that said Hulk Hogan on them. And he cut them so that we could rip them off when Hulk Hogan did. And he just had this, like, sense of fun that I know we talk about how intellectual he was and what an artist he was. And even though he wasn't wild and loud, he just had a wonderful sense of fun that I miss. And when I was thinking about him, I was thinking about all the wonderful things that I love about him, but, pardon me, sorry. And I was thinking how he was kind, and how he was patient, and how he was humble. And he didn't seek attention, but he was just he was a dark horse, and he was quietly wonderful. And as I was thinking of all these, like, how kind he is and patient he is, and it just reminded me of an often quoted Bible verse in Corinthians. And he was a man of faith, as we all know. And it describes love, and it was describing him. It says, love is patient, love is kind, love does not envy, love does not boast. It is not rude, not self-seeking, not easily angered, keeps no record of wrongs, does not delight in evil, rejoices with the truth, always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres, and love never fails. And I think that if he knew that that's his legacy, that these are things that people honor him for, I think he would be happy. I think that is being a man of faith is so important to him that I feel that he fulfilled what he wanted to be. The fact that he survived cancer, that was a huge deal for him. And as much as it hurts for him to be taken from us, the fact that he lived through cancer and was able to meet Anna and have a wonderful love and a wonderful wife just means incredible things to me. The amount of stories that you guys have told about the things that you appreciate about him, and it's just, it is wonderful to see how many how many people respect him and love him and just appreciate him the way that I did, because he was quiet and he had so much to appreciate, and he didn't throw it in your face. He was just himself. So I guess his happiness was unself-conscious and unedited. His laughter was great, and it was alive. He didn't hide his happiness. He didn't hide himself. If you ever rode in the car with him when he had the Night at the Roxbury soundtrack, you know that he was not self-conscious. Like, I gave that to him, and he played that CD to death, I think. But I just thank you for coming and for celebrating him, because he was someone to be celebrated.
Thanks, tons. You want to sing something? No.
Hi, I'm Jeff Parker, studio mate, friend of Jesse's. Jesse, you did it. You got me in a church. Didn't have to go that far. Before I get into this, if you haven't had a chance yet, there is an excellent retrospective online written by Andrew Farago on thecomicsjournal.com that gives you a perspective of a good section of Jesse's life and how important he was to multiple groups of West Coast artists. And I think they're possibly going to release a longer version of it, so please look at that, because that's going to have a lot of stuff, and the word needs to be out on Jesse. I want to pass on a couple of thoughts from editors who worked with Jesse and admired him. Nate Cosby at Dynamite Comics, we worked together on the Flash Gordon King Features book you saw up there. He says, Jesse had this incredible toolbox. When I saw samples of his work, I was stunned by the variety of art styles. And that is something that I think we were all impressed with, how chameleon-like he could do. He could bend to the situation and the kind of story or joke or whatever you needed him to do. There was a curiosity about the form, a willingness to try stuff out. It was a pleasure to watch him work and to see him whatever tool he chose to use that day. Jim Chadwick said, I found Jesse's work in 2015. I have to confess I wasn't really familiar with him at that point, but I was blown away by his samples and happy to bring him on board for our 2-chapter Batman 66 story featuring Poison Ivy. And if you don't know what that was, that's where we would do the old TV show in comics form, and we got a chance to kind of bring in characters that weren't really on the show, but how we thought they might have done them. And my thing, Jesse and I both agreed that Poison Ivy would be Anne Margaret. And you probably saw some of the drawings and thought, why is Jesse drawing Anne Margaret? And that's why. Jim says, Jesse was faithful to the likenesses of Adam West and Burt Ward, big qualification, and absolutely nothing for Jesse. Look how likenesses he could do. I mean, I would love to see those drawings he did of the kids. He absolutely could nail you and somehow get your personality, the life into the art. A lot of artists can't do that. They trace, they try to bring something to it, but he was a natural about it. He was also very inventive in imagining a Poison Ivy. It might have existed on the TV show. He also gave, I like this little detail he threw in, he gave her a set of plant-based henchmen who were suitably creepy and goofy. There were no bumps in the road in getting the job done. This is another thing. I love when an editor just talks about, you made my job easy. Because it's the highest qualification an editor can ever say about anybody they work with. It's always a big positive for any editor. I'm sorry we never had the opportunity to work together again. His talent will be very much missed. My sincere condolences to his family, his friends, and professional colleagues. If you know him, that's high praise from an extreme professional. And I'm beyond privileged to be one of the few that got to collaborate with Jesse on something like that and get a glimpse inside his mind. What a place to be. Inside there, they show rare bad movies that will make you laugh yourself sick and then keep running jokes going for years. That's the kind of thing when Sister's talking about Jesse's type of humor that of course, it always gets you because he always suckers you with the I'm the quiet guy. And then breaks out some incredibly bad taste thing that you can't forget. But like, he's famous for, online, he did ham tips. And he would break down complex concepts for budding artists. And he would teach them and just ram it into them to simplify, to tell the story, to make things clear. But that's not how he approached the work. That's what just drove me nuts. On the Batman story I was talking about, I thought, I'm going to do Hamm a solid here. I'm setting this whole story inside a plant nursery. It's going to be completely organic. There is no straight lines. He can toss his ruler and just go nuts. There's no possible way to make this hard on him. He found the way. Because I thought, trees, enormous vines, flowers, it's like. Then a couple of days again, I stroll in and see him at the desk working on the story. And then there they are, hundreds of perspective grids and vanishing points all over the place, going off the table, like what's in perspective? It's a plant. And Jesse's like, no, well, there's got to be tables for the plants to sit on. I'm like, and then I learned to okay, there's no point in me trying to second guess him and outfox him on this sort of thing. I'm just going to give him the best story, and he's going to tell it the way he's going to tell it. And then immediately it gets into, like right after that, he finally did take it easy on himself, realizing, oh yeah, we've got a deadline here. And he started bringing all that personality that he was so good at. The cartoony characters, there's just hilarious expressions. There's like a little Bruce Wayne as a kid being awkward because he's being offered a rose. It's so charming. It's something not everybody can do. Let's see. Well, and that is the thing. It's a delight to see, but my ideal course for him would have been like a one-man anthology of him telling his own stories of all kinds. Because Jesse, teaming with Jesse, got you something you didn't see every day. It was incredible stories. But we should remember, we're all more than our job. He was more than a great artist. He was a weirdness magnet. This is what made him an all-timer of Periscope, Heloscope, our studio members, and his Bay Area friends. Someone else would come in and try to tell you an anecdote like, I went to the food cart and they gave me nothing but pickles. And that's supposed to be funny. It's like, get out of the way. Here comes Jesse. Who would suddenly, this is what I loved. He was not like a raconteur in that way, that he was like, I'm going to wow people with the story. You would just suddenly say an odd phrase or something, and it would jog a memory, and he'd go, oh yeah, that's like that time I was walking across and I found a loaded gun on the sidewalk. And you're like, what? And you're like, and then you find out, he picked it up and started walking to a policeman with it to hand it to him. It's such good storytelling though. It's like, because there's tension, because you're like, even though Jesse's telling you, you're like, how's Jesse not going to get shot? Like, what's he doing? Why is he carrying a gun to the, why didn't he just leave it and go tell somebody, or whatever. So many biocomics people would give an arm to have as much material as Jesse could experience by simply going out for lunch. I wish I could remember half the stories. I'm sorry I'm drawing a blank. That brings me to maybe the last point. To me, one of the most rewarding things about being around him was making him laugh. Because he made me laugh all the time. He made all of us just break down. But he didn't just find anything funny. And he was a one-man tough crowd. He's happy to let your witty remark wither on the vine and die with his stoic face. It's just that, God, I love the stoic face, and I'm just going to miss it so much. I remember one time I'm sitting there griping like a little baby, and I'm sitting there going, wow, man, my hairline's really receding. And then Jesse looked up at me. It was just, I couldn't have felt like the biggest jerk in the world. And also just enjoyed the laugh. So if I said some of my nonsense and caught him breaking up over his drawing tablet, hell, it felt like getting a gold star. It was just the biggest reward. He gave us all that, and he brought us our good friend Anna. Another quiet and talented powerhouse. Funny that like things attract from across the world. It's not common. You can simply enjoy someone's presence the way I think we all did with both of you. Everyone's brought up how quiet he was. And it's not just that he is quiet. It's an almost supernatural, calming presence. Because it wasn't rooted in talk or putting in a show. It's just being who you are. I can still feel him. I hope I always will.
Thanks, Sarah, for letting me follow Jeff Parker. I have notes too because somehow in the last year and a half I've fallen out of the habit of speaking in public. Who am I kidding? I'm a cartoonist. I've never been in the habit of speaking in public. Well, it's an honor to be sharing a few words about someone as special as Jesse was. In some ways, it's really easy to talk about Jesse because, as we've been hearing, he was genuinely unique and remarkable in some very colorful and entertaining ways. And I know because I worked right next to him in the studio that we shared for many years. And now the studio is full of a lot of bright, creative, and hardworking cartoonists. And sometimes we would all be working in silence, our heads buried deep in the stories that we were working to create. But sometimes the room sort of erupts in these blizzards of anecdotes and jokes and one-liners. And maybe that's to be expected in a room full of art monkeys. But whatever, in these situations, if there was one guy that you could count on to deliver the side-splitting mic drop punchline to this joke tornado, it was always Jesse. He always had the one line that put the cap on everything. And Jesse was also, as we've been hearing, intensely passionate and unquenchably curious as an archivist and historian about other cartoonists and illustrators. It seems like you would be hard-pressed to think of one name that Jesse didn't have an encyclopedic knowledge of. Everything from a list of all of their works to anecdotes from their personal lives that always seem to end up pointing out some absurdity that the life spent drawing always leads to. And Jesse was a gifted and articulate and generous instructor about this craft. As Jeff was saying, he could analyze, dissect, and explain the subtle nuances of drawing and storytelling with crystal clarity, and do so in a way that made you feel inspired, like getting up and creating more and doing it better than you'd done before. So yeah, Jesse was easy to talk about in some ways, but very hard to talk about in others. Because none of those ways are the reason that I value the privilege of getting to have him in my life. Whenever I'd open the door to the studio and I'd see Jesse already ensconced in his space, hunched over his tablet, that artist's scowl furrowing that formidable brow of his, and his do-rag in place, and his stylus dashing across the screen, sometimes banging into it with an insistent machine gun-like staccato burst. And then he'd look up and give a cheery, "Oh, hey, Ron." And what I'd feel, what we all felt, beneath that intensity was the warm, gentle welcome and just the basic, decent, simple humanity of a kind and thoughtful man. A friend to be cherished, missed, and remembered.
Hi, I'm Steve, another colleague of Jesse's from the studio. At Helioscope, we used to say that if you wanted to know where Jesse was headed, just look for the Jesse-shaped hole in the nearest wall. There'd be a whole successive line of them, and you could follow them to wherever he was headed. That's something we all admired about Jesse, his single-mindedness, his ability to focus, to make a choice, and to follow through. I'm not gonna lie, it can be frustrating too. For those of us who loved him, certainly. He set his priorities, and if something wasn't important to him, it was like it didn't exist. It just wasn't, it didn't come up at all. I sat next to Jesse at Helioscope for more than a decade. He wasn't always able to come in. His public transit commute from Gresham took a long time, and something, maybe the do-rag and the beard, made him an absolute freak magnet when he was on the train. He'd arrive with amazing stories. Bodily fluids, a method machete guy, or some new and inventive violation of the social contract. When Jesse would share his latest commuter adventure, he was never freaked out. He'd just nod and give you that half smile, that wry acknowledgement that people are gonna do what they're gonna do, and he'd tell the story casually, dropping the kicker at the end that had you falling out of your seat. Jesse was like a conversational sniper. If you weren't engaging him directly, he could stay silent for hours, just head down working, but he was waiting for the exact moment to say something devastating. His art was like that too. Maximum impact created by minimum lines, not minimum effort. No. Jesse worked like a fiend to achieve that simplicity in his final work, that economy that characterized his work. An artist we both admired, the illustrator Robert Fawcett, wrote something that I heard Jesse quote once to one of the mentees at our studio. Jesse would get it right. I'm paraphrasing, but it was something like charm in art, talking about what makes art appealing, charming, comes from achieving adequate ends by seemingly inadequate means. Jesse could do that, but to pull that trick off, you need to know everything about your subject. Jesse was talking about simplicity, not sterility. He had a lot to say. And he had the hard-won ability to distill it all down to a few words in a sentence or a few marks on the page. I remember reading one of the instructional essays Jesse wrote. He was comparing and contrasting two artists' approach to similar subject matter. Both artists had immense bodies of work, huge. And Jesse had managed to find a bunch of instances where these two artists had drawn similar subjects from similar angles. Now, he would have had to sift through thousands of pages to find those specific examples, those matches. And I knew his deadlines on what he was writing didn't allow for that kind of time, all that time-consuming research. I asked him how he did it. How did he find all those perfect examples? And he seemed surprised that anyone would ask. He just tapped his temple and said, "It's all up here." Jesse was so knowledgeable and so good at communicating that knowledge. It made all of us so happy watching him find his path as an essayist and an educator as well as an artist. And I think he enjoyed that role. He was better than anyone I've ever met at cracking the code of what an artist does, at discerning and explaining what makes their work effective. And he could share that understanding with such warmth, such brevity and clarity. I learned so much from Jesse, and I can't ever repay him. There's a Jesse-shaped hole where he should be. He left us, all of us, with so many lessons, and they aren't gone. They're just up here. Thank you.
Wow. We should all be so lucky to have this many voices, this many people who love us to someday tell the story of who we are. after hearing all these stories and memories about Jesse tonight, this sort of spectacular and singular person that he was, it's hard not to be left with kind of the inescapable question of why? Why did he have to leave? And in the aftermath of a loss like this, people sometimes offer comments attempting to make sense of it all. People say things like it was just his time to go, or everything happens for a reason, or God needed another angel. But the real truth is that none of us know why Jesse had to leave. There's such a mystery in his departure. It was so sudden. He was so young. We weren't ready. And we don't understand. And the truth is, we will probably never have a satisfactory answer to the question of why. It's just baffling and incomprehensible. But there is a question we can answer, and it's not a why question, it's a how. How was I shaped by knowing Jesse? And how will I carry that goodness and beauty forward in my life now that he's gone? Jesse's Christian faith was an important part of who he was. And one central concept in the Christian faith is the idea that every person carries the imago Dei, the image of God. It's the conviction that every person is valuable and loved and has beauty to offer the world. Every person uniquely reflects the nature of God. And in a world where Christianity means many things to many people, and unfortunately often doesn't represent a full welcome, a full embrace, a full inclusion of the other, Jesse was someone who not only carried the imago Dei within himself, but he also recognized it in others. He saw what was sacred and beautiful in people. People went away from interactions with Jesse feeling seen and acknowledged and appreciated. The passage from Galatians that Ken read earlier is a list of what we should be able to notice in the life of someone who is spiritually alive, or what the imago Dei can look like lived out. When Anna and I talked about it, we agreed that this is a list of how the image of God was shown through Jesse. It said things like affection for others, exuberance about life, serenity, a willingness to stick with things, a sense of compassion in the heart, and a conviction that a basic holiness permeates things and people. And I'm struck by that last line, a conviction that a basic holiness permeates things and people. If you're not a person of faith, the word holiness could sound kind of pious and off-putting. But I think the heart of the idea really is just an ability to see and honor and celebrate the divine, the good, the beautiful in the world around you. And when someone is able to do that, it is a genuine gift to the world. And this is something we don't typically learn from economists and politicians. Calling out the good and the beautiful in the world has always been the dominion of artists. We need poets and painters and filmmakers and sculptors and novelists and comics illustrators. We need artists to help us explore and express the whole of the human experience. to notice and acknowledge the essence of the divine, the image of God that exists in all things. We need artists. We needed Jesse. We needed his art and his life, his friendship and his laughter. We needed to bear witness to the basic holiness that permeated his whole being and the way he carried the image of God. We needed Jesse, and we got him. And for that, we are grateful. In a moment, Jonathan is going to come and read a blessing to close our gathering tonight. And after that, you're invited. They're going to open up these doors over here, and there's coffee and tea and cookies, and you're invited to stay around and visit and have something to drink before you leave. I also want to ask you for two things. First of all, there are 2 guest books out in the lobby. You may have not had a chance to sign them on your way in. One of them is for Anna to take with her, and the other one is for Anne, his sister, to take with her. So if you would sign both, that would be really meaningful. And since if you have a little time to hang around, there might be time to doodle or sketch or write a message. So we invite you to do that. And then the other thing I wanted to ask is, when Anna and I were talking about this service and the music that Jesse liked, I was thinking about what would be appropriate for a memorial, and how we would incorporate all the pieces. And what she said was, he really liked Pump Up the Jam. Well, this is a live stream and we have copyright issues, so we couldn't play Pump Up the Jam. But I want to ask you, as you go into the world, as you climb into your car and you plug in your iPhone, just pull up your Amazon Music and turn up the volume and drive home with some Pump Up the Jam tonight, because I know Jesse would really love that. So, thank you so much for being here, and Jonathan's going to close us.
Thank you for coming, everyone. Before I read this blessing, I just want to say that I was a beneficiary of Jesse Hamm's generosity and hospitality when I was first getting my feet under me in the comics business. He made a way for me to meet other people and start building a career, and I owe him so much. On the Death of the Beloved, an excerpt by John O. Donohue. Let us not look for you only in memory, where we would grow lonely without you. You would want us to find you in presence, beside us when beauty brightens, when kindness glows and music echoes eternal tones. May you continue to inspire us to enter each day with a generous heart, to serve the call of courage and love until we see your beautiful face again in that land where there is no more separation, where all tears will be wiped from our mind, and where we will never lose you again.